The Bible says the Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. We saw the glory with our own eyes, the one-of-a-kind glory, like Father, like Son. Generous. Everybody say generous.
Generous.
Inside and out. True from start to finish. John pointed him out and called, "This is the one. The one I told you about was coming after me, but in fact was ahead of me. He has always been ahead of me. Has always had the first word." We all live off of his generous bounty, gift after gift after gift. Now notice this. We got the basics from Moses. And then this exuberant giving and receiving, this exuberant giving and receiving, this endless knowing and understanding, all of this came through Jesus the Messiah. No one has ever seen God, not so much as a glimpse. This one-of-a-kind God expression, who exists at the very heart of the Father, has made him plain as day. This morning I want to talk about something in the Bible that is plain as day, but I think is oftentimes overlooked. Have you ever been there? Have you ever faced something that was evident to everyone around you, but for some reason or another, you simply missed it? Maybe you were sitting at a table and someone told a joke and everybody around you broke out into laughter, but it went right over your head. It was obvious to everybody but you. Or maybe something happened on the job and you didn't realize it at the time, but you went home from work and began to reflect back over the activities of the day, only to realize that you had missed something that was obvious, something that was evident, something that was clear and plain as day to everybody but you. I think we've all been there at some point or another. In fact, in 2010, 2 researchers from Harvard decided that they would do a study on how we often miss things that are plain as day in our everyday lives. So what they did was they actually compiled 2 basketball teams. They put one in white jerseys, the other in black jerseys, and then they filmed them on the screen for just over 60 seconds passing a basketball to one another. And right in the middle of the passing exchange, they had a man in a gorilla suit walk into the frame, beat his chest, and then walk off screen. They then showed that to research groups, and they asked them to count the number of basketball exchanges between those who were in the white jerseys. Did you know that the research discovered that people were so focused on counting that they didn't even see the gorilla? A gorilla was standing in front of them, and 50% of the people couldn't even identify a man in a gorilla suit. How often does that happen in our lives? And I think that's oftentimes the way that we approach the Bible. Oftentimes, we approach the Scriptures, and we miss things that are as plain as day in search of deeper meanings. Why don't you ask somebody around you, just turn to somebody and say, what are you missing at this moment in your life? Come on, ask somebody near you. What's obvious in your world? When we approach the Bible with a certain set of presuppositions, we oftentimes miss reality. We miss the obvious. We miss what is self-evident in search of something else. Here's what I mean by that. How often do we think of generosity as a primary attribute of Jesus? I think most often when we think about generosity, we think of it in certain terms. And when we look at Jesus, we tend to view Jesus through a certain lens. If I were to ask you to identify the primary characteristics or attributes of Jesus, what would you say? Most of us would say, well, he's kind, he's loving, he's compassionate, he's truthful, he's gracious, he's merciful. But when is the last time that you heard Jesus identified as being generous? We don't often think of him as generous, and yet his ministry is anchored in this primary value. Everything in his life radiated with generosity. His teaching gave definition to generosity. His ministry was the expression of generosity. And everything in his life was about inspiring other people to live generous lives themselves. Everything about Jesus communicated radical generosity. He was the full expression of God's desire and intent to put generosity on display before the world. This is God saying to the world, I am a good God. I am a generous God. I am a God of abundance. I am a God of extravagant. And the best way I can communicate that reality to humanity is to put before you one who reflects my values, my nature, and my character inside out, and to make him as plain as day. Everything about Jesus was generous. Now, just to make sure that we're on the same page, let me give you a couple of quick definitions. In the Old Testament, the word generous simply means lavish, or plentiful, or liberal. It's a picture of abundance or extravagant. When we come into the New Testament, we discover that generosity also means exceeding the bare minimums, but it also has another layer added to it. It means lavish, it means abundant, it means extravagant, but it means poised to engage immediately. In other words, the New Testament picture of generosity isn't just living above the bare minimums on your heels, being available, but it means living life tiptoe on the edge of expectation, leaning in with lavishness, leaning in with abundance, leaning in with extravagance, ready to engage in the lives of other people, to see their world lifted, to see their world elevated, and to see them better than they were when you found them.